Hello and welcome to the AI Experience News Roundup. Here's a look at the latest headlines and key developments in the world of AI, all in under 10 minutes.
If you think about what happened from GPT-3 to 3.5 to 4, it just got smarter.
The field became known as artificial intelligence.
Can machines really think?
Can AI bring the dead back to life? In an article from The Guardian, Harriet Sherwood looks at the phenomenon that creates both fascination and discomfort. Digital resurrection. These are AI-generated avatars that bring back the image and even the voice of people who have passed away. Recent examples are everywhere. A Rod Stewart concert where the late Ozzy Osbourne and Tina Turner appeared on a digital form. A CNN interview with the avatar of a teenager killed in a school shooting. Or the co-founder of Reddit moved to tears after watching an animation of his late mother hugging him as a child. This practice, from deathbot to interactive avatars, raises deep questions about grief. For some, it brings comfort, the chance to feel close to a loved one again. For others, it risks slowing down the grieving process by creating the illusion that a person never really left. The market is already booming, especially in China, where creating an avatar of the dead can cost anywhere from a few dollars to several thousand. But behind this promise of technology comes serious concerns: the commercialization of grief, the lack of consent after death, the risk of fraud, and above all, the meaning of death itself in our societies. In the end, this article shows less a technical achievement than a cultural mirror. In a world where religion is fading, technology is representing itself as a new promise of immortality. But the question remains, should AI really help us talk to the dead? Or does it risk pulling us away from the fragile, essential reality of being human? Does music still have a soul? In an article from MIT Technology Review, the journalist explains how diffusion models are moving into music and shaking up our sense of originality and authorship. Why does this matter? Because music isn't just a file, it's memory, social rituals, shared emotions. And now AI can create songs that sound real, convincing enough to fool listeners in a blind test. The old debate of creation versus copy, once focused on visual arts, is now hitting one of the most personal art forms. The article highlights the key issue. Human creativity mixes influences with anomalies, those little accidents that artists amplify, like Beethoven repeating a dissonant note, or a modern producer keeping the sound of a slamming door. Diffusion models, on the other hand, optimize for probability. They are great at producing the plausible, but struggle to create the unique. If a song comes from a text prompt, a model trained on millions of works, and a touch of randomness, who gets the credit? The prompter, the model, or the countless artists whose music shaped the training data? The article doesn't give an answer. Instead, it points out that the real decision lies with us, the listeners. Do we need a human behind the music to love it, or will we judge it only by the sound? In the background, there's a cultural shift underway. As AI fills our playlist, background music, wedding sounds, live stream soundtracks, the value is moving from origin to use. And our emotional contract with music is being rewritten. Will we accept being moved by something with no personal story behind it? Will emergency services become more effective with AI? In an article from TechCrunch, Mayuna Temkin explains that some 911 call centers in the US are now handing part of their calls over to artificial intelligence. Why? Because the centers are severely understaffed, with one of the highest turnover rates in the country. The result is exhausted operators, sometimes forced to work 12 to 16 hours straight. To tackle this crisis, the startup Aurelian has built a voice assistant that can handle non-urgent calls, things like loud parties, stolen wallets, or parking issues, so that human operators can focus on real emergencies. What's striking here is that AI isn't replacing a worker that already has a job. It's stepping in for workers that nobody can hire anymore. The system is already live in several US cities and processes thousands of real calls every day. This is a very concrete case where AI doesn't just optimize. It becomes an essential crunch for a public service in crisis. And it raises a tough question. How far are we willing to go in letting machines take over interaction that, until now, were deeply human, especially when someone is calling for help? Are middle managers an endangered species? In an article from CNBC, Jennifer Elias reports that Google has cut 35% of its managers overseeing small teams in just 1 year. The stated goal: reduce bureaucracy and make the company more efficient after multiple rounds of layoffs, reorganizations, and voluntary exit programs. This number is telling. It's not about cutting high-level executives, but about eliminating many of the middle managers, those supervising only 2 or 3 people. Many of them stayed at Google, but as individual contributors without managerial roles. What's interesting here is the message to all of Silicon Valley. The days of stacking layers of management to handle growth are over. Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, insists Google must learn to grow without solving everything by adding headcount. In other words, do more with less, and especially with fewer managers. In an industry where generative AI promises to automate entire parts of organization, this move has a bigger meaning. Google isn't just cutting costs, it's testing a new balance between leadership, hierarchy, and efficiency. A reorganization that could become a model or a warning for the tech companies trying to adapt to the AI era. How do you kill fake news for good? In an article from Radio Canada, we get a striking example of the limits of today's generative AI in search. Google has been spreading a long, debunked Canadian hoax, even though it has been disproven for more than 20 years. The rumors started in 2004 after a mistake in a letter published by the Toronto Star. It claimed that asylum seekers in Canada received $1,890 a month. In reality, this sum is a one-time settlement payment and not a monthly income. Canadian media have corrected this myth again and again. And yet, when people recently searched for those keywords on Google, the AI-generated overview repeated the false claims as if they were true, even citing a source that actually debunked them. In other words, the AI pulled text from an old hoax email included as an archive in a serious article, but failed to separate fact from fiction. This case shows a bigger issue. AI can amplify zombie fake news, false stories that keep coming back because it doesn't reason about truth, it only works on statistical plausibility. For citizens, the risk is clear. Tools meant to provide reliable answers can become channels of disinformation. And for tech giants, the responsibility grows urgent. How do you make sure your AI doesn't end up rewriting history the wrong way? That's a wrap on this week's AI News Roundup. Join me every Sunday for a new episode in English or in French, packed with expert interviews on the front lines of the AI revolution. For my French-speaking listeners, head over to the show AI Experience en Français on your favorite podcast platform. And if you liked what you heard, I'd really appreciate those 5-star ratings. Talk to you soon.